are going to spend a few minutes trying to understand where things are happening. And you can look at this as something of a review of what we've done of the Masechet. For the children of the 80s and 90s, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? I know you all pretend that you didn't watch it, but you did. Okay, so where in the world is the Avoda? So really the main attraction of Yom Kippur in the time of the temple is, of course, going to the temple itself. And people who were able to do it, right? We have this concept of pilgrimage, of Aliyah LaRegel, that you come for the three major holidays, for Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot. But first of all, on a practical level, if you're coming for Sukkot, Sukkot is 5 days after Yom Kippur. Even today, in the age of airline travel, people who are coming to Israel for Sukkot will often be here for Yom Kippur as well. It's hard to not overlap a little bit. And certainly in the days where travel took much longer, people would try to come early and want to be in the Mikdash, in the temple, for the Yom Kippur service, because as we've seen through the first 7 chapters of the Masechet, the focus really is on what's happening in the temple. And our commemoration, or our celebration of Yom Kippur, is very, very different. So much of what's going on takes place in the temple, but there are other places as well. So we're going to do kind of a short overview in case you are not familiar with what you're looking at here. Okay, this is, of course, the model, the Holy Land model of Second Temple Jerusalem. Some old timers may remember where this was actually at what was the Holy Land Hotel in Beit Vegan in Jerusalem. Today, this is in the Israel Museum, where it's actually a much more impressive site. And you can see the city in its glory as it was 2,000 years ago, with, of course, the focal point being the Mikdash, being the temple. And we are going to really be spending our time talking about, well, when we talk about the temple, we're going to talk about other places as well, but we are really going to talk about the area of the courtyards inside, not the areas outside, which are also important, but they are not where the Avoda, where the service is taking place. Okay, so we'll spend our first few slides getting a sense of where things are. Okay, so just to orient you, by the way, this to your right is the east, to your left is the west. The wester you go, I know that's not a word, right? The wester you go, the holier you get, right? And if you want to put this into the context of today's Jerusalem, right? So the western wall, the Kotel, where's the Kotel? Kotel is down on the bottom here, right? It's not up on the top of the mountain, but it's down on the bottom, meaning the Holy of Holies, the holiest place of all, okay, is the Western Wall is closest to the Holy of Holies. So that's just important to understand, but not so significant for us. Where are things taking place on Yom Kippur? Okay, so we have different things taking place in different places. We have what's called the Ezrat Nashim, okay, the women's court, which is not for women. Okay, don't think of a women's section like in an Orthodox synagogue today where it's only women. The women's court, the Ezrat Nashim, is men and women together. What it means when we say the women's court is that women cannot go past this area into the area of Azarat Yisrael over here, where the Yisrael, the men can go. And there even is an opinion that they can go there, but we're not going to go into that right now. So this is a very large space because it's meant for men and women, not priests, not Levites, right? And it's kind of an audience, right? What's happening in here on Yom Kippur? This is the things that are somewhat less I don't know if less holy, but certainly less involved with ritual. This is where the high priest comes and he reads the Torah, right? We know at a certain point, and we remember learning it in the Mishnah, that the Kohen comes out and he reads from the Torah. So he's reading on the steps here, on these ma'alot, right? And people are listening, okay? This is also the place where we get the word that the goat that's been sent out to the desert has made it and has been thrown off the cliff, okay? And this is, most importantly, this is the place of the audience, okay? This is where all these people have come to spend their time in the Mikdash. This is where they are standing and they are listening and they are watching, and they are taking in this really incredible spectacle. Okay, if we move past the ma'alot, the steps, and we go through the Nicanor gates, remember the Nicanor gates, we talked about them in this Masechet as well. So many things connected to the temple in this Masechet. We pass through this narrow Ezrat Yisrael, right? This very small place where if you bring a sacrifice, you're allowed to come in and do smicha and place your hands on it. But that's not going to be important for us for today, for Yom Kippur. And we come into this area, which is called the Azara. Okay, this is the main court. This is only for Kohanim and Leviim, for priests and Levites. Obviously, the most important thing going on here is the altar, this massive Mizbeach, right, where we have the various sacrifices that are going on. What's happening in the Azara? So many things, right? So many different parts of the day are happening in the Azara. First of all, Yom Kippur, despite all of its special observances, also has all the regular things that you have in the daily service and what you would have in a holiday service. So all those sacrifices, the Korban Tamid, the daily sacrifice, the Korban Musaf, right, the extra holiday sacrifice, all that stuff is happening on Yom Kippur as well. So sacrifices, of course, all happening out here. Okay, this is also where we have the times that the Kohen Gadol, remember, he has to go and he has to do those viduis, those confessions. He puts his hands on the animals and he confesses the sins of himself and his family and of all the Kohanim and of all of Am Yisrael. That's all happening in the Azara. Okay, another very dramatic moment that's happening here, probably the most dramatic moment of the entire day, is the lottery. Right, the Govralot, when we have those two identical goats, we got to choose, one goes to God, one goes to Azazel. That's also happening out here, as well as the slaughtering of the various animals that are going to be put onto the altar. Blood is going to be brought inside, right? All of those things are happening. Besides that, okay, just to have a little bit of a sense, we know that our Kohen Gadol, our high priest, is changing clothes all the time, right? He's this fashion model. He's just throwing off his clothes. He's putting on his clothes, right? New clothes all the time. And in between each quick change, what does he do? He goes to the mikvah. Okay, and we have many ritual baths in and around the Temple Mount, but the one the Kohen Gadol uses on Yom Kippur is over here, right? This is called Beit Avtinus, right? And this is where he has his main mikvah. Okay, we also have the other place that Michelle mentioned at the beginning, right? Remember at the beginning we separate that Kohen Gadol 7 days before. Where does he go? He goes to the Lishkat HaPalhedrin. That's up here. Okay, so that's just to give us a sense of what's going on. But we want to move in even further, okay? And we are going to move into the sanctuary itself. Okay, and again, as we go in, things get more and more holy, and this is where we get to the really unusual things that are happening on Yom Kippur. So the non-unusual things, let's start with those. Okay, the menorah, this is the kodesh, the holy. Okay, the menorah has to be lit like every single day, right? The altar, the incense altar, the ketoret has to be brought like every day. Okay, that's the normal things that are happening. Okay, but then you have the things that are special, that are unique, that are different, okay, that are happening only on Yom Kippur. So between the holy and the Holy of Holies, right, the Kodesh and the Kodesh Kodashim, we have this parochet. You may recall that there was a whole discussion. How big is it? How many layers, right? We had a whole thing back and forth. We will not go into that, but it's very important because it's the divider between these two sections. And we know that blood is sprinkled on the parochet. And that's probably one of the things we most remember from when we say the Seder Avoda and Yom Kippur, right? Achas v'achas, right? One up, one down, seven down, right? All of that. That's what's going on the parochet. So that's very significant as well. And we also put blood on the Mizbeach HaKtoret, okay, on the incense altar. And then we get to the highlight of the whole Avoda, okay, and that's when the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, goes in, the only time in the year, the only person in the nation of Israel who is allowed to do this at this moment, going into the Holy of Holies and bringing in the incense, right? Bringing in his machta, right? His shovel with the coals, with the incense coming in in First Temple times, putting it in front of the Ark of the Covenant of the Aron. Second Temple times, as we know, the Gemara discusses, there is no more Aron, right? The Aron has been put away, has been hidden away, has been stolen, has gone to Indiana Jones. Where has it gone? In Second Temple times, we don't have it. Okay. All we have is Even Haita Shama Ushtia Shma. There's a stone there that is called the foundation stone. And that's what we have instead of the Ark of the Covenant. And you put your machta, your shovel, down over there. And that's the picture that you have here on the right, right? This amazing picture of this stone, right? What is the stone? It's a bedrock. It's a piece of the mountain. It's holy to the Muslims. It's what the Dome of the Rock is built over. They believe that this is where Muhammad goes up to heaven, his nighttime journey to heaven. But we believe that this is the stone from which the world was created. So that's what's going on in the Holy of Holies. So we have all of these different parts of the Avoda that are happening in the temple itself, but we want to explore a little bit outside as well. Okay, so we have a few things that we're going to explore outside. Probably the most famous one is the Seir Lazazel, right? That goat that gets sent out, right? I always say neither goat has a happy ending. Both of them end up dead, but one of them gets to go on a journey, right? And he's sent out with this man of the hour, this Ish Iti. Now, where does he go? Everyone agrees that he goes out towards the east, right? And that's what we're looking at over here. There's a picture of the Mount of Olives. If you were standing across the street, basically right outside the walls of the old city, you're looking to the east, you're looking to the Mount of Olives. This is what you'll see. Okay, the Gemara talks about how there was a ramp from the Temple Mount to the Mount of Olives to kind of make everything a little bit easier. Now, the Gemara says it's because of these Babylonians, Alexandrians, whoever they may have been, okay, who are, harassing the goat or the goat sender. But it also is probably just a practical thing, right? Because you don't want to go down to the valley and back up to the mountain. Now, the question that everybody asks is, well, where's the ramp, right? Have archaeologists found the ramp? We have not found the ramp. That doesn't mean it's not there. Okay, this is an area that's a valley. It's at the foot of a mountain. There's a lot of erosion, and this was probably not something that was built very permanently. So, was there a ramp? We definitely don't have proof that there wasn't a ramp. Is that a good enough answer? Not so much. Okay, where are we going? Okay, so the Gemara, if you recall, has a whole discussion about it. How many mil is it? Right? We use this word mil. This handsome young gentleman over here is my son, and he is hugging a Roman milestone right near my house. I live in Alon Shvut in Gush Etzion. We live right on the edge of part of Derech HaAvot, of the path of the patriarchs, which after it was the time of the patriarchs was also a Roman road. And we have these Roman milestones all over that tell us where things were, how far you are to the nearest city. So when the Gemara says you have to go 10 mil or 12 mil, how far is that? And you have a discussion about, is it a Roman mile, which is a little less than hour mile, a little more than a kilometer? Is it 2,000 amot, which is definitely less than a Roman mile, right? We have different suggestions, different opinions. I am not going to go into the minutia of it, mostly because we really don't have time and also because I'm terrible at math, okay? But we do have a few possibilities of where we are going. We have to go to the desert. Now, as Rabbi Yoel Elitzur, who wrote a fascinating article about this, points out, there's not one place, or there may have been one place, but there does not have to be one place, right? Think about when the children of Israel are in the desert, or when the tabernacle is in Shiloh. They're not going to these same places that they're going to when they're in Jerusalem. The point is you have to go to the desert. It doesn't necessarily have to be a specific place. However, we do have a few suggestions of where this might be, right? So here we are coming out of the area of, sorry, I want something thicker, right? The area of the Mount of Olives, going out towards Abu Dis, right? And going out towards the Judean desert. So one suggestion we're going to look at is here in the northern part of the Judean desert, Jebel al-Muntar, which is also called Mount Azazel. Okay. Another suggestion is, no, we're going a little further south, not far from Tekoa, okay, Nahal Tekoa, where we have a different mountain, and we're going to take a look at that as well. So those are two suggestions, but again, it could be really anywhere out in the desert. So what are these two possibilities? Okay, so if you go out a little bit southeast of today's town of Ma'ale Adumim, you will get to a mountain that the Arabs call Jebel Muntar. Jews call it Mount Azazel. You can go on a Jeep trip up there, and one of the things you will most notice when you go on a Jeep trip is, oh my God, my bones are going to break, right? Because it's very, very rocky and jagged. And if you look at this great picture of the side, you can understand the concept here, which is that if you throw an animal off of this cliff, it will do exactly what the Mishnah says it's going to do, right? Its bones are going to break up. And that's one of the compelling reasons why we think this is the right place. The other suggestion is no, no, no. Go to the south, go out toward Tekoa, where you have this incredible, majestic wadi, this riverbed, Nahal Tekoa. And out there, there's an ancient Byzantine monastery, right, that has the name Souka. Okay, the Byzantine monks called it the Souka. This is where the Charitun monastery is, or the Charitun cave, if anybody knows where that is, right outside of Tekoa, was the scene of a terrible, terrible terror attack in the beginning of the Second Intifada. But this is a monastery, and the monks called it Souka. Now, if that sounds familiar, it should, because the Gemara, the Mishnah in the sixth parak says that what would happen, right? Mi Yerushalayim va'ad Suk Tish'im Ris, from Jerusalem to the Tzuk. Tzuk literally means a cliff. Maybe this is the real place, and that name, cliff, just kind of stuck, and the Byzantine monks used it. So could it be that this is it, right? Out here, Charitun, out by Nahal Tekoa. In any case, wherever it might be, Rav Yoel Elitzur emphasizes the fact that the temple has to be in a place that is next to the desert. It's a fascinating idea. He says the temple can't be in Tel Aviv. It can't be on the coast, because you have to be close enough to get to the desert within a few hours walk on Yom Kippur. Now, why is this? There's the fascinating contrast of the fertile land, the desert land, right? The two have to be next to each other, God's blessing. There's also so much symbolism to the desert, right? The desert is empty, just like a person has to be empty to receive Torah. The desert is the place where you most encounter God, all kinds of interesting ideas. But he emphasizes that because of this story of the Seir Lazazel, the Mikdash has to be somewhere close to the desert. Okay, two more short things, because I know we have a lot to do in our program here. Okay, we hear about a place called the Beit HaSrefa, right? We have certain sacrifices that part of the parts that don't go on the altar on Yom Kippur are taken out and are burnt in the place of the Beit Hadeshen, the place where you keep all these old ashes from the Mikdash. And the Tosefta in Yoma has two suggestions, right? Rabbi Elazar says it's in the east, in the place where we prepare the red heifer, the paraduma, and Rabbanan say it's in the north. So we're going to look at two suggestions. The east is, again, coming back to our Har HaZeitim, our Mount of Olives. And if you walk down the Mount of Olives, you will come to one of the many churches on the mountain. It's called Dominus Flevit, and that's the picture that you have here. And if you go into the courtyard, you will have, in the most amazing view, clear line of sight into the courtyards around today the Dome of the Rock, but then the temple, right? And we know that when they made the red heifer, you had to have a clear line of sight into the temple. So if this is Beit HaSrefa is in the east, the suggestion is it is in this courtyard of Dominus Flevit. You could go there today and still be amazed by the view there. The other suggestion is it's in the north, right? Either way, it's supposed to be outside of the city. We know that the northern wall of the city in temple times, okay, it changes, but at a certain point, it's this purple line, right? Then it becomes this dark blue line. And in the 19th century, they actually discovered pieces of this third wall. Today, it's inside a gas station right off of Nablus Road, Derech Shechem. And there are people who spoke in the 19th century about a huge pile of ashes that was nearby, ashes that were organic, that were made out of animal bones. And the suggestion is that maybe this was the place of the Beit HaSrefa. Where is it today? Today, it's underneath the new buildings of Jerusalem, but we definitely have eyewitness accounts that talk about this both in the 19th century and even earlier. So was it in the north? Was it in the east? We're going to leave that as an open question. And our final place that you want to go to is at the end of the day, we get good news. The red string has turned white. We've got a clean bill of health for the next year. What did the people do? The people would escort him into his house, and the high priest would make a feast for his loved ones. And we have this incredible contrast to our Yom Kippur. We're already in the middle of the afternoon or the late afternoon. Everybody's rejoicing. Everybody's partying. It's an amazing feeling, even if you're still fasting. And we have the Gemara in Tani, which we're going to come to in a few months, that talks about how this was the day where the girls would go out and dance in white clothes and catch themselves a husband. So I finished up with our two pictures here. One is the vineyards, because they would dance in the vineyards near Shiloh. And the other is the very elaborate homes of the priests in Jerusalem, the Herodian quarter, because they would accompany him home to his house in Jerusalem. So I hope we got transported a little bit to the reality of what it might have been like to go and join the Kohanim for the Avoda in Jerusalem. Thank you, everybody.